Cathedral City has a long history with the Empire of the Seven Cities and an even longer history with religion. Even during the colonial period, Cathedral City was a very religious town and the source of many troubles, trials, and tribulations. Back in its earliest history, it was called Nam Kieg. It attracted colonists from Europa, Sealy, and even Makewill for the fantastic fishing and the beautiful land. During the 2440s, you could walk down the streets of the fishing town and hear 24 conversations in a dozen different languages. The township thrived and grew in time, growing to be a center of commerce, industry, and even religion. The freedom of faith of the colonial government attracted faiths of all kinds across the planet. Mithritis, the hidden Christians could worship among traditional faiths openly without fear of reprieve. However, not everyone who came to Namkieg had such benevolent intentions. From a barbaric land, there came cultists that sought to create a land where they could rule with an iron fist, where all worshipped the same as them, where their holy book was the only one read, where everyone else different from them is enslaved, executed, or exiled. These cultists, when they arrived, were welcomed with open arms. The leaders of Namkieg believed their story that the cultists escaped persecution, and the people welcomed them as long as they respected the laws of Namkieg. Except as time went on, more cultists arrived, more were born, more were converted. The people of Namkieg watched as their laws, their town, their very way of life, change around them. In less than a decade, the town went from having dozens of languages spoken openly on the streets to only one spoken openly, and all others had to be whispered. Leaders of the town became enslaved, imprisoned, executed, or exiled by the cultists for crimes both real and imagined. As the cultists grew in number, many different freedoms were removed. Slavery was legalized, enslaving the local tribes and nations to send back to Rome. Women went from working in local government and business to being banned from speaking unless spoken to, unable to divorce their husbands, unable to own anything, and unable to be paid for their labor. In time, one of the last things the cultists did was rename Niamkieg to another name, a name that was derived from a word meaning peace. Whether it was done ironically or done with sincerity, it meant little to the citizens of the town who did not follow the cult. All they knew was that their home of Namkieg was no more, and now Salem was not a place of peace. It was from Salem that these cultists worked to spread by both converting and killing across the territory. Their reach was wide, even sending missionaries as far north as Vinland and as far south as the Tano Sea. They left death, debris, and devastation everywhere their missionaries went. The idea that it was better to be dead than unconverted meant that their crimes were felt across Vespucci. And even centuries later, many people shudder even at the name of these cultists. And the name of these cultists whose ideals were so pervasive that even now they shape the government of the seven cities, who taught countless generations guilt for every moment of rest, who enslaved thousands and killed millions, who destroyed the knowledge and wisdom of so many because they were not the same fate. The cultists who still endure to this day and who still believe that they aren't cultists. They went by many names. They called themselves the saints, the godly. They even called themselves God chosen when they were feeling humble. Their enemies had another name for them. Their enemies called them Puritans, and they made many enemies. This legend from Mermaid Bay in Vinland was shaped by Puritan missionaries, although not likely in the way they were intending. From the descriptions of the legends, it seems it was Puritan missionaries who accidentally created the treasure tree, and it was also Puritan missionaries who destroyed the tree centuries after it was created. While Mermaid Bay has many strange legends, cryptids, occurrences, and phenomenon, enough to fill many books. We are focusing on the stories around the treasure tree, how it came to be, treasures it gave, and how it ultimately was destroyed. Our world is full of many amazing and fantastic people, places, and phenomena. While we may not understand it all, I do not think that gives us the right to destroy what we don't understand either. We have every opportunity to be greater than our worst impulses, and the world is better because of it. Origin of the treasure tree. Once in Mermaid Bay, there was a wise woman who lived outside of the town with her daughter. She knew many things, and people often came to her when they needed her assistance. When most of the town was ill with plague, she was able to make a cure for everyone, so none died. Another time, when a ship lost its sail in a storm, the wise woman showed them where the currents would have brought the sail, and sure enough, it was there. And the wise woman's knowledge was not merely to the mundane world, but also of the world of magic, fae, and demons. When a resident was suffering from never-ending nightmares, even when they awoke, the wise woman gave them a candle to light by the bedside, one that chased away nightmares, Mara and hags alike, bringing them pleasant dreams. Another time, when Draugen haunted the streets at night, the wise woman led them to the Draugen's graves, teaching the people to lay straw where the dead lie, having them lie iron scissors on the dead's chest, and then tying their feet together so they could not rise. Her magic was great, her wisdom greater still, and her heart was by far the greatest. She loved her daughter more than anyone in the world, and she sought to teach her daughter all of the wisdom that she could. The wise woman wanted her daughter to take over someday, and her daughter was eager to take over when the time was right, and Mermaid Bay was happy. Until the missionaries came. The head missionary, a cruel man named John Cotton, led the missionaries to Mermaid Bay, where they struggled to find anyone to listen to their words, let alone follow them. The few who would listen pointed out what they had already. When John preached that his missionaries' prayers could heal the ill, people pointed out that the wise woman had already healed the ill. When John preached that they could live forever after death, the people pointed towards the graves of the Draugen, and how they didn't desire life after death because they didn't want to be a Draugr. When John preached that they could live godly lives through work and they could keep the devils and demons away through work, it was pointed out that the people of Mermaid Bay could rest easy because of the wise woman. They lived a life that was everything that John promised, or even better, because of the wise woman, and he could not offer them something that they weren't already getting. So John Cotton devised a plan to make it so that the wise woman would no longer be around to convince the people of Mermaid Bay that their lives were better without him. So he declared the woman a witch, and he led his missionaries to her home in the middle of the night. He caught them by surprise at night as he burned down their home, then cut their clothes off their bodies before he lashed both the wise woman and her daughter, demanding that they confess to being witches. Even with hundreds of lashes, neither confessed. Both bore their punishment stoically, but John Cotton did not care. He declared them witches, and he hung them both from the tree on their front lawn. Still, both mother and daughter hung from the ropes, refusing to speak and refusing to die. Even as they hung for 3 days, their faces blue, their tongues swollen, necks broken, eyes closed, lungs breathless, and rot tumbling from their body along with piss and shit, they still did not die. It is said on the fourth night that the witch spoke to John Cotton in a dream. As John lay paralyzed, unable to move, he saw a shadowy figure at the edge of his bed as the wise woman's words filled his ears while he struggled to breathe. And he was forced to listen to the wise woman's words as she whispered to him, "God has abandoned you in this frozen land. You have slain an innocent for no more reason than your own ego. The only thing that awaits you after judgment is perdition. My own judgment will be held off until one can return something that cannot be lost, something you will never possess, and yet what you have stolen. Enjoy your life as it stands, John Cotton, for what comes afterward will wash away the memories of your life." The witch told John Cotton as he struggled, and he finally grabbed his sword. The cross on his sword offered him protection from the night hag. When he arose the next day, he tried to burn the tree with the bodies still hanging from it. 3 times he tried to burn the tree, and 3 times rain came to wash away the fire. When he tried to set fire for the 4th time, a bolt of lightning struck the tree 13 times, incinerating the bodies and leaving the tree scorched, but still standing. John and his men returned to Mermaid Bay to share their story with the town. After sharing their story with the people of Mermaid Bay, they sought their revenge on the missionaries. For the first missionary, they separated him from his friends and let him drink away his troubles at the public house. When the missionary was drunk, they gave him wood alcohol to drink, and he drank the poison without noticing the taste. He was dead before he finished his flagon. For the next missionary, they waited for him to sleep before they snuck him away from John. There, the missionary was gagged, and his back was carefully cut open, his ribs cut, and his lungs removed, just enough that the missionary slowly suffocated, his lungs exposed to air. A method of execution the people of Mermaid Bay learned from their raider ancestors. Then the final punishment came for John that night. He was also bound and gagged with help from John's personal slave, a brave woman named Tibitua. Bound and gagged, John's punishment was slow and nearly as cruel as what he did to the wise woman and her daughter. His arms and legs were broken with vices and hammers, leaving his bones separated from each other, only to be cut by a sharp blade. The resulting stump was cauterized with hot iron, and John was forced to watch as his own amputated flesh was roasted, seared, and pan-fried in front of him. He was starved across several days, giving him just enough time to heal, so they could torture him more. They fed him his own severed flesh, and he ate it in desperation to stay alive. They removed his arms and legs. They left his eyes, his mouth, and his genitals. So he could see the wonders of the world, but never be able to touch it. He would be able to speak, but he would never be listened to. He would be able to desire sex and marriage, but according to his own ideals, he was unworthy of marriage, and he knew none back in his town would love him. Yet the residents of Mermaid Bay left him alive, and when he was healed, he was sent back to Salem in a boat with no crew and no sail. Still, he did return, and he was able to share his tale. And for a long time, no one from Salem, even when it was renamed to Cathedral City, would ever sail to Vinland again, out of fear of what the residents of Mermaid Bay would do to them. Then there was the tree itself. It still stood, and for years it would be remembered as a memorial for both the wise woman and her daughter. It would be many years before anyone discovered how the magic of the treasure tree worked. But when it was discovered, the people of Mermaid Bay would still thanked the wise woman. How to get a wish. A story with instructions about how to use the treasure tree. If you ever find your life lacking in something, you can head to the treasure tree deep in the forest. The tree lives where once a witch lived, where two witches died. The treasure tree can grant wishes. The treasure tree can provide what you're lacking. However, there are safe ways to get what you are looking for, but there's also unsafe ways to go. If you decide to head to the treasure tree, you need to be sure you don't tell anyone. You cannot ask anyone for help, and you cannot ask anyone questions about the treasure tree that weren't shared freely with you. If anyone even suspects you are seeking out the treasure tree, they will stop you. They won't try to stop you. They will stop you, and you will have to try again another night. And you only have one chance to walk the path while you live. You will have to head out for the treasure tree at dusk. If you leave after the sun has set, you will not be able to see the path at all. If you try to leave before dusk, the path will not be there. If you travel down the path at dusk, be certain that you are carrying something for the treasure tree. As you travel down the path, you will see things beyond the path that may try to bring you off the path. You will hear snapping twigs, quiet whispers, bear growls, and even wolf howls. They will try to get you to leave the path, and you will need to remain on the path. If you get off the path, you will never find the path ever again, and you will need luck to find your way back. If you continue down the path will try to get you to stop seeking out the treasure tree. The voices and sounds beyond the path will become figures that you can see. The wolves and bears will stalk you, and you will see them. The danger is real. They cannot walk on the path, but they can stalk along the path. Getting off the path now, you won't need to worry about finding the path ever again, because the hungry animals will have found you before you have time to regret getting off the path. If you are brave and you continue down the path, the animals will vanish. You may think that means things are safer. The animals aren't gone because it's safer. They're gone because it's too dangerous for them. You'll see the figures who were whispering before. They aren't whispering now. They will resemble your enemies, your families, your friends, anyone you know who might be able to convince you to stop. They will make promises. They will make threats. They will tell you that if you turn around and head back to the village, that you will have the object you desire. They will tell you that they love you, that you don't deserve the risk that lies ahead, but you need to stay on the path. When that fails, they will threaten you. You will see loved ones tell you that they despise you. You will see your enemies covered in blood, your own blood, telling you that they will see you burn. You will hear things that can never be taken back. You will have every chink in your armor exploited. You will have every hateful thing yelled at you as you pass them by. But you need to stay on the path. And as you pass by the threats, you will face people who will beg you to step off the path. Most of them you will never recognize. Their faces sad, their eyes crying, and their voices mournful, full of every lost wish, full of every lost memory, full of every loss. They will tell you that every step you take is agony for them. They will tell you that only you can end their pain. Unlike the wish wraiths before, these phantoms speak the truth. Every step on the path is a pain for them, a reminder that they will never have their wishes granted, and that you are going to get your wish granted. But you need to stay on the path. If you get off the path at this point, or if you try to turn back, the wish wraiths can take your place. The first one to take your place will be able to continue on the path for their wish, and you will remain behind. But don't be jealous of the wish wraith. They have lost who they are, they have forgotten what it is to live, they have even forgotten why they want their wish. They just remember what their wish is, and if you are trapped as a wish wraith, remember who you are for as long as you can. Remember why you wandered this path for your wish. You will have another chance to ask for your wish. You just need to convince someone to step off the path for you. You can threaten, you can promise, you can beg, or maybe you'll think of something no wish wraith has done before. But it is important that you remember who you are and why you have the wish. When you get off the trail, you might just remember why you had a wish and when and why you have gone through the agony of being a wish wraith. You will never squander your second chance when you've been through that. And just because no wish wraith has ever remembered who they were when they made it to the treasure tree, doesn't mean you won't be the first. You just need to be stronger than everyone who has come before you. You just need to be stronger than everyone who has come after you. And you just need to be stronger than everyone who may have walked this path. Although, if you were weak enough to fall off the path, if you manage to avoid getting off the path, you will make it to a clearing where there is a tree that is both burnt but still growing. You will find countless glass bottles around the tree, all filled with paper slips, the remnants of wishes long since left behind. Every one of them granted. Be careful not to break a bottle. Broken glass is dangerous and likely to cut you. This is the treasure tree, and this is where you need to leave your wish. It is important that you write down your wish on a slip of paper, and you put the wish inside of the bottle before you go on the path. However, the ritual isn't done just yet. At the tree, you put another slip of paper into the bottle. On this slip of paper is what you are offering the witches of the treasure tree. With both slips of paper inside of the bottle, leave the bottle somewhere in the clearing, away from where people walk, and when that is done, you will awaken in your bed. Your wish is granted, and the price has been paid. If you are wise or lucky, the witches will take what you offered at the tree. If you try to get clever with the witches and offered something of a lesser value than your wish, well, every wish comes at a price. Every wish is granted. However, wishes granted aren't always what you expect, and what is offered isn't always what is taken. Sometimes what is taken is something that wasn't offered at all, something unexpected, something vital, something equal to the value of the wish. For example, there was once a farmer who wished for wealth. His exact words were, "I wish I had enough wealth to last the rest of my days without working another day." He offered his farm in payment. When he woke up in his bed, he found out he was ill and he was dying. The doctors gave him mere days to live, just enough for his meager savings to last. When he died, his farm was left abandoned because he did not leave it to anyone in his will. His family without a husband, father, nor wealth. Another example was a desperate man who had a wife who succumbed to the curse of lycanthropy. So he sought the treasure tree to beg the witches for a cure for his wife's curse. His exact wish: I wish for a way to end my wife's suffering. He offered his own life as payment. He woke up in bed with his wife sleeping next to him, and he had a pistol with 2 bullets in his hand. 1 bullet of silver, 1 bullet of lead. His wish was granted, but not in a way he expected, and the witches got their payment. Another wish that didn't work out. An elderly man walked down the path. He could barely walk, and every single wish wraith refused to speak out or even try to tempt the old man. Even as tortured and forgetful as they were, they feared the fire in the man's eyes. At the treasure tree, he wished for forgiveness. His exact wording: I wish I could be forgiven for my many sins, he wrote. And what did he offer to the witches? He offered the blood on his hands. When he awoke in his bed, he woke up alone. No loving family, no attendants, not even a dog to keep him company. His only company? A glass bottle with his wish on his nightstand, and a note in his breast pocket. A note he read from the witches that told him, You asked for something I cannot give, and you offered something that wasn't yours to give. There is no wish to grant. It said, as the aged serial killer, one who had killed or chased away all who loved him, died soon after reading the note. Then there are the wishes that were well thought out with a proper exchange, and they were granted. One time a young girl, the youngest to ever venture down that path, wished for her mother's health. Her exact wish? I wish for my mommy to be healthy. What did she offer? She offered her heart to the witches. Instead, the witches took the girl's hair. Even though the girl's hair will never grow, she was happy because she woke up next to her mother, healthy again. So healthy that illness would never touch her again. They're happy, and they are a rare example of a wish working out. Another wish that did work out was a teacher who braved the treasure tree after the death of all of her students. A gas leak, an accident no one could have predicted, left them all dead, and it was only by miracle that the teacher lived. So the teacher sought out the treasure tree and asked for their students back. Her exact wish? I wish that my students did not die in that accident. She offered the witches anything they wanted that was hers, as long as they could bring back her students. She woke up the next day to find that the witches took a picture of the entire class, but her students had lived. Only she remembered the accident, and she would never be able to take a picture of the class as a whole. Not anymore, but price she was willing to pay for their lives. A final example of a wish going well: a blacksmith came to the tree to ask for knowledge in how to work with iron better than he did now. And what did he offer to the treasure tree? His hammer. The witches took his hammer, and he had the wisdom he desired. However, he was now unable to ever pick up a hammer anymore. However, it was a price he was willing to pay, because it meant he could pass on the knowledge to his son, who was training to be a blacksmith. The treasure tree has great power, but very few are wise enough to handle the challenges of the tree, and are wise enough to avoid being blinded by their own wishes. Someone who is willing to brave wraiths to heal someone else may have their wish granted. Someone who cares about others can see how their actions and wishes affect them. They will think it through, and they have considered the costs before they pay them. They are someone willing to pay a greater cost than the witches will charge. Someone who is blinded by their wish, who is willing to walk barefoot through hell for their wish, may not think through their wish. They may not see the cost that they have paid to get their wish. They may be blinded, burned, and buried by their wish. But they do not care because they got to hold the sun. There is a reason the witch's cost for selfish wishes is usually so small. What burns worse than getting what you asked for? Do you dare seek your wish? Is it truly an unselfish wish? If it is a selfish wish, you may want to find yourself wishing for a better wish, an unselfish wish. There are a lot of tales of wishes gone bad or gone good, but there is only one story about what killed the treasure tree. Began when a stranger came to Mermaid Bay. Not much was known about the stranger except that he was a missionary from Cathedral City. They were in Mermaid Bay for weeks, keeping to themselves mostly, occasionally visiting the library, the local paper, and the bar, although they never drank. After a month, the stranger arrived. They asked about the treasure tree. At first, people kept the secret of how to get to the treasure tree when asked. The tradition is long, and it is there for a reason. To avoid people simply walking to the treasure tree without having to think about their wish, and also to keep those who would use the tree for harm from getting to the tree. However, in time, the stranger was able to ply the information he needed from drunks at the bar. What was told to the stranger? It is not known. The drunks did not remember speaking to the stranger until others reminded them that there was a stranger. So, the stranger, equipped with the knowledge of how to reach the treasure tree, tried to reach the treasure tree 3 times. The first time, the residents of Mermaid Bay stopped the stranger by having the forest rangers escort him back to his hotel. By the time he was back in his hotel, dusk had turned to night, so the stranger could not seek his wish. The second time, the stranger tried to get his wish. The lycanthropes of Mermaid Bay stalked the town under the full moonlight, keeping the stranger in his hotel to avoid sharing their curse. The third time, the stranger made his way up the trail. Mermaid Bay held its breath while waiting for the news of the stranger's return. They wanted and waited to see what his wish was, or if his wish turned sour, how it turned sour on him. What they did not expect to see was to see the stranger walk down the path, carrying a bottle with nothing inside of it. The stranger left Mermaid Bay that very day. When asked about his wish, he only responded that he always had what he needed. After the stranger left, the people of Mermaid Bay found something strange about the treasure tree. Now the path to the tree was always open, even during the day, and anyone who braved the path never returned. Not anymore. Even when hunters walked the path, they never survived to tell the tale. Only death walked the path to the treasure tree. A story shared by the Marquess of Madness. Once I walked down the path of Mermaid Bay. The people in town tried to warn me. They tried to stop me by force, and still I walked down the path. It wasn't like the stories that were told to me. Where there was supposed to be whispers, howls, and growls, there was only silence. Not even wind, and the twigs I stepped on snapped in silence. A powerful magical silence filled this part of the forest. But I could not see anything stalking me beyond the path. But even I did not dare stray from the path. As I continued down the path, I made it to where the first of the wish wraiths were. They did not appear as figures to me, just as barely human-shaped smoke. They did not try to speak to me. They did not try to change shape into something to get me to walk off the path. These weren't the desperate spirits who were clinging on to something. These were the shades of those who had given up on everything. No names, no wishes, no memories, no hope. They were in pain with every step I took, but they didn't even react anymore. Still, I did not continue down the path just yet. Instead, I extended a single hand beyond the edges of the path and into where the wish wraiths waited. It was not long until one wraith, maybe one with some curiosity, or maybe just chance, grabbed my hand and I pulled the wraith onto the path. Once on the path, the wraith was no longer smoke and shadow, but was whole again. Now a person now, as I reminded her of who she was. Theophania Titania, named Queen. I reminded the figure who was once a wraith and who now lived again. She remembered who she was, what her wish was, and why she wanted her wish. Tears in her eyes, she turned up the path where the treasure tree was, and back to Mermaid Bay. As she began to make her way back to town, her wish no longer consumed her. As I turned to the other wraiths, and I offered my hand again. One by one, name by name, soul by soul, life by life, I pulled all of the wish wraiths from their limbo back to Earth. Each one I gave back their name. Each one I gave back their memory. Each one I gave back their wish. And every time they turned away from the treasure tree, and they made their way back to Mermaid Bay. A steady stream of people lost in time returning to Mermaid Bay. Maybe to make a new life. Maybe to wander lost in the modern world. I did not know. I just know it was a better fate than being lost forever between life and death. After many days had passed, and I had pulled the last wraith back to life, I continued down the path. The forest was still quiet, but it was not a supernatural quiet now. And when I made it to the tree, I saw what the stranger had done to the treasure tree. Every bottle was shattered, the tree was cut down and burned, leaving only a blackened stump and ashes that still hadn't blown away yet. The treasure tree was once something else, and now it was ruined. I could tell there were once two souls that resided here. Now there was only one. One full of anger and pain, and I could not see the soul, which is concerning. Still I spoke to the seemingly empty clearing. I know they took your daughter away. I can bring you to your daughter. I offered the empty clearing. Then I felt a presence behind me and a voice in my ear. Can you bring me vengeance on those who took my daughter from me? The old wise witch asked. That is not what I offered, and it is not what I promised. I want vengeance, she whispered, and I responded, if you take vengeance, I cannot give you your daughter back. Do you prefer vengeance on those who took your daughter, or do you want your daughter back? I asked the guilty ghost, who gave me her answer. After I had her answer, I nodded. If that is what you wish, then so be it. But I will need to take you from this place and take you to the realm of the magician, where I have an important task for you to do. And when it is done, you will have what you asked me for. I told the ghastly Geist, who responded, you're playing a very dangerous game, little girl. Why would someone as powerful as you ever help someone like me, let alone someone who has created as many wraiths as I have? She asked me, and I turned to face her. She floated a meter off of the ground. Her hair floated like she was underwater. Her skin was translucent. I could see decay pump through her veins, and her neck was at an angle, showing that even in death it was broken by the rope. Why? Because you need help, and because I think deep down you still want to help people too. And this will be your chance to save and to be saved, I said to the witch as I offered her my hand, and she grabbed it. As she shook my hand, her skin was no longer translucent, her neck no longer looked broken, her hair settled on her head, and she looked human and alive. But unlike the wish wraiths, she was not back to life. She was something more akin to a phantasm than a living person. Una Astrodoter, named Urza, I welcome you to work at the Pumpkin House.